What's going on, my fellow Jedi and Padawans? Welcome back to another Jedi gaming video. Thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel, and if you guys are new, welcome. With the release of Lightfall alongside the Stasis subclass, we got our second Darkness subclass inside of Strand. Now today we're going to be taking it to the Hunter, pairing that with the trusty dusty Damage King for the Hunter, the Star Eater exotic boots. These give us that nice Feast of Light, which do some nice increased damage for our super, and you will see we're able to clear out a lot with this super, whether it be those Master Lost sectors, Defiant battlegrounds, creating Suspend. Very fun PvE build. So as always, we are starting with our abilities, aspects, and fragments. Right here we got our Silkstrike. So important to note here that we press our light attack to swing the dart rope in front of us to deal damage. The tip of the dart deals bonus damage, defeating targets, cause them to explode, and then you can use your heavy attack, if you would call it that, which swings over your head in a circular motion, dealing heavy damage to everything around you. And no matter what grenade you have on, you will get a grapple inside of your super. So like with this, we have our grenade that suspends, and we will still have a grapple inside of our super. So for abilities, starting out for me, I'm going with Marksman Dodge. Personally, I like this for this build, having that ability to reload our weapons, especially in that end game content, and we're going to be using our ability often for a few different reasons, not this to dodge. Now for me, I always go triple jump, but you can go with whatever you want in this slot. We're using our threaded spike right here to sever the enemies and cause that melee energy to come back to us when we hit those targets, so a nice regen for us on the hits. Now we're also using Shackle Grenade, like I said, to suspend targets, thinking that this is the best verb that we have for Strand in my opinion. Plus we can stun those unstoppable champions and any other champion in general. We can even just lift up as soon as they're about to pop their shield and stop it from happening, so it's very effective for ad management and dealing with some of those stronger enemies. Next up, for our aspects, we have Widow's Silk, so we gain an extra grenade charge. Your grapple creates grapple tangles, so that'll be important for our super, but not our grenade in general. We're going to have 2 of those shackle grenades, allowing us to get that Strand suspend literally everywhere. Like I said, makes it so easy for endgame content, going in solo or with a team. Next up right here, we have the Ensnaring Slam. I have a hard time saying that, but activating the air move to consume our dodge. Like I said earlier, we dive down to the ground, suspending all targets in the area. This uses our ability and extends the cooldown a little bit extra compared to the normal dodge, hence why I still went with Marksman over Gambler's dodge, because the Gambler's does seem to be slightly longer overall. Plus this ensnaring right here gives us that ability to slam with our dodge basically and suspend all of those enemies, stun those unstoppables, etc. Playing into this build heavily, and then we can just juice it with our weapons, or if we have our super, do it then. Now moving on to our fragments right here, I have this built out to give us our grenade back, as well as keep that suspend and sever as long as possible. So we have Thread of Binding to start, so those super final blows on those lesser enemies emit a suspending burst from the targets. Super nice, gives us 10 resilience as well, plus that suspending burst, like I said, so nice for endgame activities. Next off right here for fragments, we have the Thread of Continuity, which gives that suspend, unravel, and sever effects to targets have increased duration, so helping us specifically with that suspend on some of our heavier targets. Plus we're applying sever via our melee, and we will be getting unraveling rounds in a second. You will see why with our artifact and our strand weapons. Next up for this build, Thread of Generation, which has been acting a little bit buggy lately, but I'm sure it'll get fixed up soon. We have that dealing damage grants us grenade energy, allowing us to have that double shackle even more often, allowing us to spam those everywhere, creating that suspend, and it is so gnarly, like I said, especially when we got unraveling rounds going, and it creates a nice burst, those tangles, etc. And last but certainly not least, to keep us alive in that end game content where we can use that super to absolutely juice bosses with DPS, we're going to be using that Thread of Warding to pick up orbs of power and grant us that woven mail. That woven mail is basically a protective shield around us, which greatly reduces incoming non-precision damage, so it's nice again for staying alive in that end game content. Now right here, when we move on to our weapons, we have Rufus's Fury, Rufu's Fury, however you want to say it. On mine, I have Demolitionist Paracausal Affinity, Demo to give us our Shackle Grenades back, as well as that Paracausal. When we get defeats with the weapon, any of our abilities, it gives us a nice boost to damage because we're using that Strand, so Darkness Funnel Blows boost Strand weapon damage. You could throw on Frenzy if you want a very good alternative, or Hatchling, kind of like I have right here, Envious Assassin and Hatchling. Very good combo as well, and a backup choice for this build for me. Now, I am going to use Harsh Language with Wellspring and Repulsor Brace because we're going to get volatile rounds, so we're going to get that Void Overshield with Repulsor Brace, and all of those defeats with the weapon generate energy for our abilities, giving us that spam, like I said, of our melee and specifically our grenades and dodge to suspend everything, while giving us those orbs of power, you will see, to have that super get charged super fast, as well as Feast of Light for that juicy DPS. Now for our heavy, I am going with the Two-Tailed Fox with that Third Tail Catalyst. So we have a Solar, Void, and Arc Rocket that shoots out. Void suppresses, Solar causes damage with Scorch, and then our Arc Rocket jolts. So technically this right here, when we have volatile rounds, can do barrier champions with it. Same with our grenade launcher, and then also if you shoot enough rockets at an unstoppable, the Scorch will cause it to explode and stun it. And then the same with Jolt, if you jolt a target, it can stun Overload. So this thing definitely slept on, and one of my favorite exotic weapons right now inside of the game. Now right here, moving on for our artifact and our mods, we are going with Overload Auto for our auto rifle in our kinetic slot. Next off, we're using multi-siphon mod, so we can have that Void and Strand siphon on our helmet to pair for our auto rifle, as well as both our energy and heavy weapon. We're also going with authorized mods on this to give our grenade mods on, you'll see, our armor to be costing less. They are like usually 1, sometimes a little bit more depending on it, but they could be 3 or 4 without this. Now we are using Volatile Flow, of course, so we can get that volatile rounds, like I said, for Repulsor Brace, as well as that anti-barrier inside of the Two-Tailed Fox. Next off, we have Untanglers, so destroying tangles with a Strand weapon suspends targets, damaging with that explosion. So another way with creating all of those tangles that we are with the Strand subclass, creating those explosions, allowing us to suspend even more targets. Now, one of the mods that I think is super broken this season is Shatter Orbs, so we create even more orbs of power, giving us that woven mail, and it's giving us our super faster because of our exotic lades, so very important perk for this build as well. 2 more left that I think are important for this. We have the Allied Unraveling, so when we get those rapid final blows with Strand weapons, getting that unraveling rounds, which is super nice, like I said, for that little bit of extra damage, and it spreads all of those tangles and little explosions around to keep that suspend going. Last but certainly not least, we have a Threaded Blast, so destroying tangles with Strand weapons creates a larger, more devastating explosion. Pairs perfect with Untangler, so that explosion is even larger, creating a bigger burst of that suspend, just creating a beautiful way to add management and also deal with some of those stronger enemies if you don't have a grenade at that moment. Now moving on to our armor over here and our mods, we're creating as many orbs of power as possible. so we can proc this as well with Font of Wisdom, get that super back with our supers, as well as that Woven Mail inside of our Fragments. Now we're going to have Void and Strand Siphon on so we can create Orbs of Power with all of our weapons. We're also going to have Access to Assets on right here, so we gain super energy on grenade defeats, and with that double shackle, we will get some defeats on those rank and file enemies a little bit easier than some of the orange bars, etc. We're going to have that Font of Wisdom on, which gives us 100 intellect when we have armor charge, allowing us to get our super back as fast as possible. Now when we move on to our arms right here, we're going to have firepower, so all of those grenade final blows that we possibly get will create orbs of power, as well as we're going to get melee cooldown and class ability energy when we cause damage with our grenades, so double dipping inside of that grenade category, like I said, for that artifact mod, allowing us to have those be a lot cheaper to have more on our armor. Now when we move on to our chest piece right here, I went with 1 charged up and 1 concussive dampener. This helps keep us alive in that end game for concussive dampener. Seems to be a lot. You can change it out for melee or sniper depending on what activities you're going in. I went with 1 charged up so we can have that intellect procced basically at 100 at all times with Font of Wisdom. Now when we go into our boots right here, making it so good for damage as well as getting our super back fast, we have Feast of Light. You gain additional super energy from those orbs of power we pick up, so giving us, let's say, 5% on normal. With these boots, we're getting 8, 9, 10% just from an orb of power. While we are in our super energy, picking up orbs of power overcharges that super, causing it to gain a burst of healing when we cast it and extra damage, so that Feast of Light stacks up to 4 when our energy is full. Now when we do that, it also gains an overshield when we have that ×4, and you see we absolutely juice enemies inside of a Master Lost sector. Takes a couple hits to wipe out Unstoppables and just a couple hits to wipe out overloads at that max level, so very effective boots for that damage. Bosses in normal game or even some of that legendary lost sectors, legendary battlegrounds, you're still able to take just a couple hits on that final boss and it takes down his health a lot with these boots. Very staple for DPS with hunters. Now for our mods, we're going kind of crazy here with Repercussions, Better Already, and Innervation. All of these are picking up orbs of power. We're going to get our grenade back faster. We're going to get health to respawn immediately and keep regenning almost like a Devour. And then Repercussion, we're going to get a nice little chunk back because, like I said, this is all about orbs of power, getting our super back very quickly, and then keeping us alive in that end game content. And last but certainly not least, on our class item right here, we have Time Dilation, Reaper, and Bomber. So Time Dilation allows us to have that Font of Wisdom procced even longer, allowing it to decay slower. So Reaper, when we dodge, we have that ability to create another Orb of Power with our weapons, so sometimes we'll create 2 with that Strand or Void Siphon as well as Reaper. And finally Bomber, so when we dodge, we're going to get our grenade back a little bit faster, allowing us, like I said, to spam that shackle everywhere, spam our dodge to suspend enemies, create tangles, get those unraveling rounds to proc, and then wipe everything out with Strand. Switch on over, because we're getting those orbs of power, we're going to be able to use our Wellspring and Repulsor Brace grenade launcher that gives us that overshield as well. Plus we have Woven Mail for endgame, very good for survivability. We can do some pretty gnarly damage with Two-Tailed Fox, and then on top of that we have the Star Eaters to back us up, so our super can do some juicy max damage on enemies, especially those bosses. So this build, very fun, like I said, for our Strand Hunter, taking it in for some max damage right here. Survivability, you can't die with that Woven Mail on, and on top of that we're getting overshield from Repulsor Brace. It is just the best of both worlds with this build, damage and survivability for that Strand subclass. So thank you guys again for the support. Truly appreciate it. If you guys enjoy these videos as well as the guides for weapons, etc., make sure to hit that subscribe button. Come back, check out the channel, support. I appreciate all you. We got a lot more coming out this season, and next, obviously, when we get some more juicy dungeon and extra content. So thank you guys so much. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.